Welcome. Welcome to Blinkers Off with your hosts, Jared Welch and Aaron Halterman.
What is up? I'm Jared Welch. He's Aaron Halterman. It is Thursday, October 12th. This is Blinkers Off, man. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I don't know. If you're tuning in live, it was silent for a little while. I looked like it just kept doing like it was getting. I don't know if it did that on your end.
No, it didn't do anything. So I was like, is he? I thought you hadn't even started. I looked up and said, we've been live for like 30 seconds. So I don't know what happened. That was weird. It's almost like your computer like froze on you, I think.
Yeah, it glitched for a second, and then
Yeah.
of course at the wrong time, and then that's why I hit refresh on my browser, and I went and when it clicked back on, it was like live for we can see how long we've been live, and it was like you said, like 40 seconds. Like, oh shit.
Yeah. You actually like kind of like froze / went away. So I think that's what happened. I think your browser kind of said, not yet, not today.
Not today. Well, you know what is today? We have that kind of weird, I wouldn't say dead week, but for the Breeders' Cup purposes, it's kind of like where everyone's, we're done with the preps. Although we do have and it's not a prep this weekend. We'll talk about the Queen Elizabeth. That's a weird one, right? Because you have several in there that like might be legit Breeders' Cup contenders. But then also like you kind of have that week. Next week we'll have the pre-entries out. And then of course the week after it's on, right? And so this is kind of that week where we have to kind of make do and kind of fill time a little bit because we're waiting for these fields to kind of, unravel.
Yeah, I actually, this is a sneaky weekend coming up. That's how I would describe it. Like, I like to, especially Keeneland. I mean, the other tracks aren't bad either, but you look at that Keeneland and it's like, damn. Starting tomorrow, well, I know they're running today, but starting tomorrow through Sunday, there's actually some big time horses coming in. So, yeah, I would not look at this as whatever for this weekend. This is a pretty good one. So yeah, I mean, there's some major horses that may end up going to the Breeders' Cup after this weekend.
Dude, I mean, this might be too bold, but you can make a case, very easily make a case where two horses running this weekend could win the Breeders' Cup, a Breeders' Cup race.
I think so.
I
I
mean,
definitely think I don't think that's a stretch. I agree. Yeah.
I mean, because you had Caravel Sunday, which obviously, I mean, easily could do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yep.
and really, frankly, anything out of that race could if she gets beat, or because that's a tough division. And then, like I said, the Queen Elizabeth, you've got a few internationals that are coming in that are like the goods, and on top of what we have here over here, and once again, another division that's tough. And so I don't. Like you have those two horses, those international horses. We'll talk about the race coming up, but the two internationals, Maj and whatever the other one's name is, the one we saw at Saratoga.
Mm-hmm.
Those two are legit.
I agree. Yeah, Lucid Princess is the other one you're thinking of. Yeah, those two look really good. I think they're Breeders' Cup types, depending on how they run, obviously. But going into this race, it feels like they are. Yeah, you do have Aiden O'Brien coming over on Friday with the horse. So, yeah, I mean, we saw this last year though too. If you remember, Gunite was kind of late onto the scene, and he ran a couple weeks before the Breeders' Cup and went on to run okay. Same with Wicked Halo. Didn't win, but ran okay. But yeah, it's weird how that works. How we got guys prepping 2 months before the Breeders' Cup. It's their last one, and then you've got trainers that are like, yeah, we'll just run this last one and then go up 3 weeks later. So I'm excited for it. I didn't have high expectations for the racing this weekend, but I think it's damn good.
I mean, listen, I like this Maj horse, the winner of the Guinness, has rattled off 3 straight. Like I said, hasn't been seen since May, which was the Guinness, but beat and someone else can help me pronounce it, but Tahara. And that's a horse that, I mean, freaking legit horse. I mean, I think that horse has rattled off like 3 Group 1 wins since. I mean, if you go watch the Guinness replay, it was a showdown. So that horse coming over and being a filly, like even the trainers, like we don't even know, we're not sure if we're going we'll see what this race what happens in this race. But to your point, it's like not only are they going to the Breeders' Cup, but they don't even know which race they're going to be in yet, and we're 3 weeks out.
Yeah. She could be a flop, or she could be really, really good. So yeah, that's just one. It could go either way, but yeah, her races coming up to this have been pretty spectacular. If she comes over and handles everything well, you're right. I mean, she certainly could be, a horse no matter where they go. It's like, yeah, that horse has got a good shot to win. Could not even see her in the Breeders' Cup at the same light. So it's kind of hey, we're going to take a swing at this and see what happens. And so that's a really exciting thing, right? I mean, that's as fans, that makes you excited. As bettors, it makes you excited because you either go, okay, I really like her. Maybe we can build tickets around her. Or, hey, you know what? I don't believe in the hype, and I get better prices on everybody else in the race. So it's a win-win for everybody. I love that. And that's just one of those little surprises that we're getting on a weekend that I didn't think there'd be much. It's like, wow, that's really interesting to see how that horse does.
Yeah, really wouldn't, like you said, I we'll talk about it later in this next segment, but like, there's horses in here that I could see, like I said, being legit contenders, or maybe she's not even in, you don't you don't think about her too much in that race. I think this is a weird race this weekend. It's deep too. It's full filled. You got some Chad Browns. I mean, you've got it, like you said, it's a sneaky good weekend for horse racing. And then of course it just really gets going as we get closer, but it's not a bad weekend whatsoever.
Nope. I'm looking forward to it for sure. And yeah, like I said, if you don't like her, there are options, and that's what's great about a race like this. Sometimes when you don't like a favorite, at the same time that you don't like a lot of options here, to me, you can go a lot of different ways. So yeah, it makes it awesome. And Keeneland's always fun, but I think this is it's better than we thought it would be for sure.
I'm really excited for today's show. We've got we're going to go over the studs and duds of the Breeders' Cup and kind of give our thoughts as we could be a couple horses out of the same race, could be whatever, but just kind of an idea of who we're liking as we sit here 3 weeks out. But before we get to there, we got to do your favorite part of every show. You got to tell me, who's your Breeders' Cup Classic winner?
The first one that jumped on the page when you put it up there that I saw was Bright Future. So I'll go with Bright Future this week.
So if I would have had it been on Zandon, you would have gone back to Zandon.
Yeah. Well, if I would have saw his name on there first, yeah, I would have. Yeah, but I'll go Bright Future this week.
Yeah, Forte's on track, I heard.
There you go. I mean, who knows, right? He kind of was like, he kind of disappeared, hadn't seen him in a while, and now it's like, well, maybe he's back. I don't know.
Saw what Up to the Mark did on return. I guess it doesn't matter. So, I haven't heard if Derma is for sure coming or not. I think Practical Move on the comeback last time was. I hope they go to the dirt mile though with him, because I do think he could be really dangerous in that race. Here would be a lot to ask, but
would it?
But I mean,
why?
Well, that's true. I'm still on. I'm still on. I'm still on Team Japan, which sounds kind of dirty to say, but Ushba Tesoro, that's gonna be the worst for me. I'm honestly, the more we go closer into it, I'm gonna continue. He's becoming more and more of I'm going to need to be proven otherwise to not pick him, kind of thing. That's just kind of, because I'll be honest, when I was going through the list and kind of all the races last night of different horses and where they're pointing to, I'm not sure. I may not pick a favorite in 14 Breeders' Cup races. I just feel like it could be that kind of year where, having said that, probably 12 favorites will probably win. But we talked a little bit about that last week on the show, where it's like, is it one of those years that the fields aren't awesome. We don't have at least an awesome kind of superstars in a lot of these races, so you're going to get long shots, or is it the better horses of the weaker are going to shine through and ultimately win?
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. And I agree with you. I agree with your thoughts. And all this stuff you just take with a grain of salt because you just don't know what you're going to do until you get the fields. But yeah, in a lot of these races, it's hard to think that you're going to take a favorite in it. This one being one of them.
There's out of 14, I would say I would, at least at this juncture, and I mean maybe 3 favorites where I might feel like somewhat comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty rare. I feel like a lot of times with Breeders' Cup races, you can get, and I'm talking like, I think you can go, like, I think 10, 15 to 1s are going to be very much in play.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
At Breeders' Cup. I mean, they are every year, don't get me wrong, but this year it feels like more than ever.
Yep.
You're going to be able to, you mentioned it a lot last, well, you do it every time we talk about this, the contenders of the Breeders' Cup. It's like, it's really hard to talk about a race in the Breeders' Cup this year and be like, oh, that's a crazy pick. I can't believe you'd pick Ushba Tesoro to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. You're like, well,
yep.
Why? Or I just mentioned Practical Move. You're like, really? I mean, he could win, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. I have people in the chat every time we do this put out names, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, I could see it. Yeah, Senor Buscador. There you go. I mean, I know he's probably kidding around there, but there's a world he wins. There is. It's just weird to think that, but there is a world where he could win, where there's 19 out of 20 races of classics, let's say, there isn't a world where he wins. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a Fort Larned type of event this year, right? I mean, that at Mucho Macho Man, it's just like he was the best horse on that best day, or on that day, but he's really not, like, and that's not disrespecting the two horses. You got to be good to win a classic, but it's like they weren't really, like, you sit there before the race, think, boy, we're going to see something special from these horses, right? They were just the best horse on that day.
Right. It just feels like we talk about it every year. It just feels like we're progressively getting closer and closer towards, like, Japan's making a little bit of move here, and it's like, if you ever had a year where it felt like it was time for them to break through, you have a couple factors at play. One, you've got the Dubai World Cup winner coming. You also have a very underwhelming group of older horses. Any of our division in the Classic is, so it's just like, if there ever was a year, it does feel like it's lining up to be that year. I'm afraid Ushba is going to be bet too. Like, is that horse going to be pounded in this race because of that? I mean, I can't be the only one thinking that.
Hard to say exactly, but I don't think, like, your thought process is wrong. I mean, a lot of times, not the turf horses that come over from Japan, but the dirt horses in the past, they've kind of been longer prices. They've kind of been ones where it was hard to get to. This one's gonna be, I mean, you can make it going to be easy to get to, right? Like, you could make a pretty big case for this horse on paper. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely gonna, I mean, you better have 5, 6, 8 to 1, I would think, right? Like, I don't think gonna get pounded to be the favorite, but I don't think you're gonna get double digits on that horse, not against this field.
No, I mean, it's hard to say right now. We can talk to our good friend John, but it feels like Arcangelo is going to be, but you look at the year where we got Knicks Go at 3 to 1. I mean, it's such a quality. It was like 5 to 2.
Yeah.
You had that kind of, if those are your, like, at that year was that, you got to think 3 to 1 is probably the low end on Arcangelo.
Probably.
And so you're looking at like 4 or 5 to 1 on maybe Arabian Night, and then 6 to 1. So, I mean, Ushba probably is in that 10 to 8 to 1 range. I would just guessing, just based off of the other horses that are in the race that I think are going to get bet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Fixed odds 8 to 1 right now. Curtis Manlow says, just commented there. So Do you want 8-1? I mean, is that good enough price for you? So let's pretend that's what he is. 2 minutes to post.
I would play him at 8-1.
Okay.
I don't love it, but I also don't love the idea of playing Arcangelo at 2 or 3-1.
Fair. You know? No, that's fair.
When we got Knicks Go at 3-1, that felt a lot cleaner than Arcangelo at 3-1.
I mean, it's night and day, and that's not a knock on Arcangelo. I mean, if you want to play that horse at 3-1, I don't think that's the worst thing you could do. But yeah, I mean, Knicks Go, to at least to me, felt like a much better proposition than Arcangelo does coming into this one.
And value is all relative too. I mean, if you love Arcangelo and you think he's a lock to win 3-1, you might kind of like we were with Knicks Go. We couldn't believe he was 3-1.
Yeah.
So if you love him, then yeah, I mean, you said, it's playable. But for me, if you're on the fence with him, and yeah, I do think should be the favorite, but do I want to pick him as a favorite? That's two different things.
I can't remember Dennis, not Dennis Trusty, the other Dennis that we met up at Saratoga last year. We saw him again this year. He was wanting to play Scotland in the Travers, and he was asking, "Hey, what are fair odds?" I said, for me, it's like 50-1. Like, I don't want anything to do with that horse. But if you love him, then that's a different answer. Like, your answer wouldn't be 50-1. So yeah, it's all relative. It all just depends on, your take on it. I mean, me personally, I probably wouldn't want to play the Japanese horse at 8-1 just as of right now, but that could also change when I see the rest of the field and who lines up against him officially.
Yeah, that's just it. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a different, who would be another one that would be 10-1 plus that I'd be interested in. What do you think? I mean, I know you probably wouldn't play him at all, but if Forte does make the race, what odds would you think Forte will be?
He'll be 6-1, 5-1. I think he's short.
See, and that to me, I just, if he's 10-1, he won't be. But if he's 10-1, I would be interested in him. Defunded, I don't know. I mean, he's probably 8 to 10-1 range.
I would say, yeah. I mean, he might be one that gets a little bit ignored because of the recency, not be very good as of late.
I think White Barrio is an interesting one. Because of the fact of it's been so long since we've seen him. I mean, it's not been that long, but relatively to horse racing, it has been. And you kind of had it was one of those performances that was hard to believe how good it was, and so people might be disregarding it. At what point do you become interested in White Barrio, even though you kind of are on the fence with how good he might be in the race?
I think he is going to get bet. That would be one of mine that I think is going to get bet. But yeah, if he was around 6, 7, 8-1, I think that makes a ton of sense. I'm worried because somebody else has got to get bet other than Arcangelo, and I'm worried White Barrio is going to be the one people gravitate to. People bet Beyer speed figures more than they do anything else. Whether that's right or wrong, that's just kind of a fact. They're going to see the number and they're going to think, well, this is pretty simple. If he runs out again, he's going to win. I'll bet him. I'm afraid he's going to be 4-1. That's or somewhere around in there. That's my kind of worry on him. And again, it's just at that point, it's going to be, okay, how much do you love him? Do you love him? Do you just like him a little bit? Because if you like him a little bit, if he gets bet like that, I'm afraid that becomes a tough pill to swallow.
Zandon could be a juicy price. Considering what we saw from the last time out, I think he could be some sort of a value there.
Probably gonna be
just enough. He'll be just enough to where you're kind of wanting to pick him.
He's gonna be tough to swallow at anything less than 15-1. That, as far as winning, when we're talking about winning the race, it's just hard to think he's gonna put together 2 in a row. Especially against a much tougher field. So I'm not against him. That's the thing. I kind of like him, but I kind of can't bet him at a low price.
It's such a weird year because it's just normally I would just I mean, not even that long ago, I would have laughed at you. Like earlier this year, I would have laughed at you for thinking Zandon had any shit. Well, really, those two horses on the screen, Zandon and White Barrio.
Yeah.
And especially Zandon, just because I have viewed him personally as such a perennial runs well, but finishes second and third. I've keyed him. I feel like I've keyed him underneath and more horses than I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And yet here I'm sitting here talking about, like, if he wins, I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, I won't be that surprised.
It feels like the type of race he gets second or third in again, not wins. That's my opinion on it. I do think he's coming into the race better than ever, and I think he actually won. So I mean, that's easy to come to that. Like he's coming into the. Let me say this slowly. Zandon is coming into this race off of a win. So that's something different.
Since the Bluegrass. Yeah,
I mean, so that's. Obviously, if you like him, you're feeling better about him, even though it is a tougher race. But it does kind of feel like he's going to run up, get second and third type of race, even after that win, which honestly, probably the best win of his career last time out. As far as not the biggest, but just he looked the best of his career. Like that looked like a good racehorse that wins races.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Christopher, where it's like,
totally.
These 3-year-olds will need to step up a pretty good amount to beat any of these older losers. But yeah, I agree, because even though, because the 3-year-olds have just kind of traded punches. I mean, I guess Arcangelo is the one that's looked. He kind of, he's looked really good. But Candy can kind of keep that up. I don't know, but I definitely feel like the older horses are the ones that are. And that's saying something, because White Barrio, I mean, Zandon, I mean, Proxy, I don't know, but I even think Ushba, like, you're going to have to run a good race. I think that horse, he's a gritty horse.
I mean, it is, whether you like him or not, it is right there for a 3-year-old to go win it, right? You're not going to have a 3-year-old crop catch a older crop this week for a while, right? But I'm kind of with Christopher in the fact that, he's saying they're going to have to step up. They are. Arcangelo, you really can't fault him. He hasn't done anything wrong, but they aren't like, whoa type of efforts. They're just like solid. Yep, that was really good. Yep, that was really good. We haven't seen like a damn, like that could go win the classic type in most years. But this year we have, because nobody except for that one race by White Barrio has really jumped up and gave you that wow type of effort.
No. Let's get into it, because we got a lot of questions coming in out of other races as well. Yep. And so let's get into today's show. We're going to preview, kind of look at all the races, but also we're going to kind of go through and, talk about the horses that we think you can count on to be studs at the Breeders' Cup, and then what are the duds to avoid, maybe to leave off your tickets, or who are not really looking at, or kind of being cautious with as we get closer to the races in a couple weeks. And then we're going to go through rapid fire and give one stakes race each day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Keeneland, of course, including that 600K Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup Stakes. Unbelievable race. Stay tuned for that. Let's go. All right. So here's the lowdown here. We're basically, Halterman and I have put together some lists separately, and we're going to go through, and it's kind of give us an idea of, like, I'll flash to the races as we go, bring them up on the screen between on who, what we say, and then we'll bring it up and we can talk about each, kind of use it as an idea to talk about each race as well. And the horses were kind of, I wouldn't say keen, but the ones that's the thing too, guys. Like, as I was doing this, there was some that I had in the same race, So It's not necessarily like who I think is going to win, or, I just think these are the horses that I think I'm expecting to run well in the Breeders' Cup, and here are the ones that I'm not, or at least maybe will be overbet, or I don't have a value, whatever. So that's just kind of a way to look at this.
Yep. Don't be surprised if this changes quite a bit.
Oh yeah. And by no means is this like, our picks. It's just as we sit here 3 weeks out, kind of where our mind, where your minds are at as far as these horses, and obviously a lot can change.
Yep.
3 weeks.
Yep.
Man, it's hard to believe. It's 3 weeks from today. We will be in Santa Anita in Arcadia with our boys.
That's right.
All right. We are just over 3 weeks out to the Breeders' Cup, the 40th running of the Breeders' Cup World Championships. And today we're going to take a look at the studs and duds that we expect to see in those races. And, we've put together a list each separately, our studs and duds. And here's the key, Halterman. I'm going to throw in a little loop. We each get a veto, okay, just to make things interesting. So if I give you a horse that I think is going to be a stud, you can be like, no, dude, no. Can't allow that. That's going to the dud category, and vice versa. So let's just, let's try to make a little bit of a list on both sides and hopefully help some people out as we get closer to the Breeders' Cup. But you're my guest, so I'll let you go first. Give me, there's no real rules other than that. So give me a stud or a dud.
Well, I only have one stud, so I'll go ahead and get that one out of the way. I only have one stud. That's Echo Zulu. That's the only one that I sit here right now today and just think, yeah, I'm picking her to win, right? So now, if she faces the boys, that becomes a little bit of a different story. We'll see if that actually happens or not. But Echo Zulu in the filly and mare sprint, I think she's a stud. I think it's the only horse in the whole thing as we sit here right now, October 12th, that you're like, yeah, that's one that is going to be very difficult to beat. So Echo Zulu is my lone stud.
That was, if that helps at all, that was the one clear one that it's number one on my list on the stud side. That's out of any past that, I think you're reaching, but she's the one I would venture to say in the 14 races she's gonna. I mean, it's like you said, I think it will change, right? If she's in the sprint against the boys, I mean, I think she might still be the favorite, maybe. But I definitely think if she's in the filly and mare sprint, she's no way she's not the shortest price of the 2 days.
Yep. Should be. Now again, you see, that doesn't mean, hey, she's gonna win. That just means that looks like a horse that's the only horse, as long as she runs in the filly mare sprint, at the end of this thing, if she loses, that's the only one I would go, I'm really surprised she lost.
Yep. Yeah, me too. Because here's the thing, last year it was, and we've talked about this before, but this year it feels so more intentional with her. Like last year, she was up. She had a good 2-year-old year, then had some troubles getting back to the track as a 3-year-old, and just kind of was behind the 8 ball. They rushed her to get to that point, and she ran well, but not well enough. And just you could tell they were playing from behind. This year it's felt very intentional. One, she stayed healthy. 2, they've pointed to the races they want to run her in, and she's made those races. And so to me, it just feels like. And by the way, when she is good, she's freaking great, right? I mean, she's unbelievable. Yep. So I just think if she's, we've not heard otherwise, right? That I think she's coming into this race. And the other thing too is who's going to beat her?
I don't know. I mean, Goodnight Olive, maybe.
I mean, that would be. I mean, obviously the defending champ, right? So I hate, you don't want to you don't want to discredit her too much, but she's not been in the same department as Echo Zulu later, the later half of this year.
Yeah. I mean, and didn't even give her any kind of challenge last time out. But I mean, I think that is the one, but like I said, it has not ran very well. I mean, other than that, I mean, there isn't a whole lot of horses to worry about. There's not unless we see something different, there's not a ton of other speed that has that kind of Echo Zulu speed either. So that's another thing. It's I think she can cruise out there, and I think it'll just make her awfully tough to beat.
See, I think I would instantly put Hoosier, if she runs in this race, Hoosier as a dud, just because we've proven that the only way she runs well is 1, in lower class, and 2, when she's a lone speed and kind of just lopes out there. She ain't going to get that with Echo Zulu in the race. There's no chance. I mean, so I don't envision a world where Hoosier filly could outrun Echo Zulu if they're in the same race. So I Now, if she's out of the race and then she goes to the boys, I mean, I guess that's another question. Do you think are you still gonna have how confident are you gonna be in her if she runs in the sprint?
Not nearly as confident. I mean, that's a whole nother ball game. I mean, who would you rather try to hold off, Elite Power or Goodnight Olive?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I just
know my
don't.
answer.
And that's not to say I don't think she can win, because I do think she can still win that in that race, but it becomes a lot tougher.
All right. What do you want me? You want me to go? Because I went. Since you have we have a lot of duds. Sounds like.
Yeah, go another stud.
I'll go another stud.
Okay.
Give me. Let me see. Well, can I say any international horse on turf? That's a pretty easy, very broad one. But I just feel like you bet. I mean, the international horses on turf should have a field day in the 2 days.
I think.
Okay, I'll give you a real horse.
I think. Well, go ahead. Yeah. Well, I'll comment on the internationals. I think those 2-year-old races, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf, I think international is going to dominate those.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's probably, want to be one or two that the U.S. gets a win, but I don't have a lot of confidence in our turf horses right now.
I think the U.S. could be dangerous in the mile and in the filly and mare turf, depending on who else comes over.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, this is in the same department, but it's at least an actual horse. I'll say it's in Spiral, the international horse coming over. I think this is in the turf mile. I think this horse is going to be really, really tough to beat.
If the horse comes over, I don't think they'll be. He's one of those I'll believe it when I see it types, because he seems a little too good for the Breeders' Cup. No, I'm serious. Like it's not that we never, but not that often do we get like one of the top ones.
Yeah.
Right. They usually will stay over there. Like we never got like a Frankel, for example. This Spiral horse is a top European. So I still, it's like, I don't believe he's actually coming until we see it.
But I think, I want to say when I was doing the research on this, I read that they wanted to run one more, like this is going to be the end.
Okay.
Is that right?
I have no idea. I don't follow that.
Well, I mean, I obviously, because last night when I was going through it, I was like, all right, let me see the internationals that are coming over, which ones are planning, which ones aren't, because obviously if I'm feeling that way about turf, who are some of the studs that would be coming to kind of make my case. And this is the one that I felt like was going to come over and would be tough to beat.
That one will be really tough to beat if it comes over, for sure. I mean, that's a hell of a horse. I've watched the replays, a couple of them I watched live, and Spiral's super talented. I don't think we got a horse that can beat in Spiral.
There is, who is this other one? Who is, the Japanese horse, Songline.
Yeah.
Interesting horse, right? Yep. Because of the Japan, and we've seen obviously Japan come over and start winning every race, feels like. But that's the other one that I thought was interesting. But then I watched in Spiral, and I thought, that horse comes over, it's over. So, but yeah, I mean, let's see. Frankie rides Kinross in Spiral, according to Ivor. Supposedly she's filly and mare. I think they haven't decided. Another one of those they haven't decided, but I don't think most of this. I don't think he's coming. I want to say I saw that he's not coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe Rodney, and I should have bookmarked it, but I believe I read an article last night about, how it is when you start researching these international horses. They're all the same. But I believe I saw an article like this, that they kind of laid out their, like the final push with its Spiral, and the Breeders' Cup was going to be involved. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Well, hopefully we see that. That would be fun.
Yeah, and really, no matter what, it's like, just be sweet to see a horse like, you know what I mean? Anytime you
Mm-hmm.
have an international horse like that, it makes the Breeders' Cup that much better. I mean, this is a horse that is ran 12 times, won 8 of them, 7 for 11 in stakes. Just a really, really, really good horse. Last ran, I guess it was like last week, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think this horse ran last week in the Group 1 overseas in Newmarket. But yeah, and dude, Rodney, that was when you want to see two guys. Well, I think it was 3 or 4 of us in the paddock. We were, what would you say, a foot, 2 feet from the navel?
Yep.
You know, walking right by us every 30 seconds or whatever, making our circles and right there by Gosden, and it's just like, holy shit, like this is like, just unbelievable seeing this and heard this close, let alone what we saw on the track. It was really awesome.
And that goes to my point of that usually we don't get an enable type, but when we do, it was a massive deal. It's like, we enables actually coming. Like that Breeders' Cup was fairly lame in my opinion. Other than that,
but that made it.
That was amazing.
That saved it, right? Because we didn't care about how bad it was because we saw Enable.
Yep. She was,
and the way she won too, where it was just like came from
amazing.
the cloud, and just gone down the stretch. All right, so no veto for you on that one. I think you agree with the Spiral, assuming that the comes over. All right, give me a dud.
I don't love Locked for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and I think this horse is going to take some money. I don't know how much money this horse will take with the Baffords out there, but I still think Locked might get a little bit over bet. I was not overly impressed, even though I know he won, and maybe he does turn out to be a nice horse, but I don't think he's quite as good as some of the other ones that might take a little less action than him. So Locked is kind of my juvenile horse that I'm going to probably fade.
I don't necessarily agree, but I don't disagree enough to veto. Let's put it that way. I'm not I would not be surprised whatsoever. I don't think the horse is a lock. And by the way, since you mentioned it, I'll give you another dud that's in the same race.
Okay.
And that is probably I guess, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting how it is actually the favorite. Prince of Monaco. Do you have a veto for Prince of Monaco?
No, I'm not going to veto that. I think there's some question marks. I really didn't like how that horse finished up last time out. I don't like that, he skipped the last round of preps either. No, I don't veto that. Well, when we get closer, maybe I would, but as of right now, I don't. I have interest in Prince of Monaco, but not a ton.
I don't know, I think Magic's posted. If he hasn't, it will be soon. I ranked the top 5, my top 5 juveniles as of right now, and I put Prince of Monaco second. I put Muth first, just a spoiler alert. But that race last by Muth, if he can do that again, which is I feel like is what they were trying to do with the horse all along, right? To rate and then go. Like I think that's the horse that I would want out of those two. I don't know how much further Prince of Monaco is going to want to go.
Yeah.
Son of Spicetown. I just Muth to me, or even Timberlake. I thought Timberlake was really, really nice as well. I think that those are the two for me that I'm most interested in. I'm really hoping Prince of Monaco gets bet out of the two Baffords, but I have a feeling it's going to be Muth because of the recency.
I agree. I agree with all that. Yep.
Let's see. Ronnie says Muth last race showed he can rate, and that's the state. Bafford mentioned that early in his career. Like even before that, I think it was the best pal that he got beat to Prince of Monaco, and he even mentioned like we need to get the horse to rate. We need to get the horse to rate, and he obviously didn't, and then faltered. And once he figured out rating, I mean, you text me right after the race on Saturday. It's like, so is he good now? Because that was a different horse.
Yeah.
Than we'd been seeing. That was a professional mile 16th effort at Santa Anita where he stalked the pace and then pounced late. That kind of performance, because he obviously has speed. If he can use that speed in the right spots, he becomes a different horse.
Yep, I agree. I thought he was better than the other two on the day, Timberlake and Locked.
Let's get aggressive here. Okay, well, no, we can stick to the juvenile right now. Give me VV's Dream as a dud in the juvenile fillies. just I thought this horse ran well, kind of last time, but underperformed in my eyes. I don't believe the horse is going to get better going out west, or that this. I think that this distance is not perfect for the horse, BV's Dream. And so I'm just wondering. I kind of hoped I wish she would have won last time out, because I would have liked to play against her even more so in this race. But just I don't know if it's a big leap, because I don't know if a lot of people really like BV's Dream to win this race. But for me, I think she's going to be dead.
Yeah, I do too. I'm with you on that one. I don't see her being able to bounce back from that loss. I mean, Candy got her pretty easily. I think tomorrow's really good. I kind of like Just FYI a little bit as well. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm not a big fan.
I thought Candide was nice. I don't know if that horse can do it again, but obviously Tamara is going to be huge. But another one of those interesting horses that you're gonna have to wait and see, because you don't know what you don't know what she's going to do, because we haven't seen her in a while. And can she kind of have she had that freaky performance? Can she do it again? So that's a tough division even though I do think there's some talented horses in the race. I just don't like VV's Dream.
Yep, I agree.
All right, give me another one.
I'm going to go with the entire distaff field. I think it's the worst ever.
that's dude. It's funny you said that. I wouldn't have gone that far, but I just was like, went through the distaff field, and I was like, okay, which one of these is going to be my dud, because I'm going to pick one. And I was like, all of them. Like I can't get on board with it. Like I can't narrow one down.
I think like Idiomatic or Adari Manor is going to win it. And I mean, what are you going to say? I mean, Idiomatic really hasn't done anything wrong, but it's just like you watch her, it's like, I know that's not like a world-class horse running there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, you look down the list, it's like, well, none of the 3-year-olds are very good. Clairiere, it's like, where is she? I don't know. It's not a great field, not a great group.
La Davida, that's the horse. That's probably going to win.
I mean, I bet on La Davida more than probably anybody in the world, and only been cashed a couple times. So
Wet Paint probably win this one.
And that's, we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, or it may have been last week. It's like people are like, man, I wish they'd throw a filly into the Classic. It's like, well, unfortunately, the distaff's probably worse than the Classic division. So it's not great.
This is going to be a impossible race to handicap, just because you're going to have to just say, well, this is my opinion, and the horse could win, the horse could finish 8th. Really wouldn't be surprised with either one of them. I mean, there's a few that I'm 100%. I mean, if they run Nest in the race, which I wouldn't even be surprised at this point if they don't, there's no chance I'm betting Nest. Like that, I'm 100% fine with getting beat by her. I need to see something from her again before I get back on that train.
I maybe a horse like Randomize, it's kind of on the
rise a little bit. Yeah.
But the problem is, I think when the past performances come out, everybody's going to say that, and the horse might get bet way too much. But I don't know. You just kind of look at it. Idiomatic, I think, is just one where it's like, yeah, I mean, that horse could win, but we can try to beat her, and maybe it's Randomize. Gosh, I don't know. It's not a good group.
Let's see. We gotta get another stud on this. Our duds are getting too heavy. And we haven't had any vetoes either. Let's see.
Yeah.
I'll give you one, and it's
okay.
This one's more bold, but I'll put it this way. I don't know that the horse will win. We'll find out, I guess, but I do think this horse is going to run really well if they do choose the dirt mile, and that would be Practical Move.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to sit here and be like, this horse is a lock to win. He's going to be my pick, but just a horse that we obviously had a good year and got injured before the Derby. Then the way he came back and how good he looked at Santa Anita, by the way.
Yeah.
I just would be hard pressed to think that he's not going to run at least another good enough race,
Yeah, that's fair. I wouldn't argue with that one. You said earlier, I hope they try the mile and the dirt mile, that is, and it is the most logical situation, but I wouldn't blame if they tried the classic with him. I think the mile, he's going to be tough. You said it. He came back really well. He beat a field of average horses, but damn, he beat them easy. They kept him way out wide. He was kind of in his own race. It's like, whatever. That wasn't any challenge for that horse. So I think he's going to be pretty darn sharp.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Yakteen was like, before the race, it was like I said, like, well, like we're playing on the Breeders' Cup, but we got to let it see what happens, right? See how he comes back, and he came back, and they're like, yeah, that's what we were expecting. Now we're looking at the Breeders' Cup, so they had hopes to get him in the Breeders' Cup even up before that race, and so, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like, I don't know that I would love him as much in the Classic. I understand why you kind of joked about it earlier because it's that division, but going a mile and a quarter for the first time, and then also second race off the long layoff, like I could be tough. But then again, this race, I mean, you got to go against Stoddy Crown, assuming if they don't choose the Breeders' Cup Classic for him as well,
right?
And so it's not like this is a gimme race, but I do think Practical Move would be really tough, or at least will run really well based off how well this horse has ran really his whole career, frankly. So give me Practical Move for a stud.
I like it.
All right, what you got? Let's see. Give me one more. I'm trying to think if I have one any more. Do you have any more duds?
I've got a couple here. I'm trying to decide which one to throw out.
I
got a classic dud.
Okay, give me one.
And again, maybe I get the past performances and I feel differently, but I think Go Rocket Ride is going to get too much play for his actual chances of winning. Because this is why I say it. I think he's the third best 3-year-old in a 3-year-old group that isn't the greatest. I don't see him turning the tables on Arabian Night now that he's 100%. I don't see him being able to beat Arcangelo. I like Go Rocket Ride as a racehorse. I think he's going to get too much action in the Classic. So I've kind of got Go Rocket Ride on the dud category.
The thing about it is these duds are like this year. It's so easy to come up with the duds that I can't veto that. I'll be honest. Like I haven't. If you made me pick my top 5 in the Classic right now, like my predicting the top 5 order, anyways, he would be he'd be flirting that 5, but at best, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't say I'm going to put him in my super, and so to your point, he's probably going to be 3rd, 4th choice,
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I actually don't hate that one at all. I actually like that. So,
okay.
Bold. I'll give you a bold one that I have a feeling. So I'll just mention I have 3 big time horse duds, and you can veto one of them because I'm sure you will.
Okay.
So my 3, this will get some uproar, I know, from a few in the chat. My 3 big horses that are duds are Up to the Mark in the turf.
Okay.
Cody's Wish in the dirt mile, and Warlike Goddess in the turf. Is that where they're running her in the turf? I think.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my 3.
I agree with 2 out of the 3. Can you guess which one I don't agree with?
Up to the Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's the one I don't.
That's my bold take, right? But I think Warlike Goddess that's easy.
Yeah,
that race the other day was just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and it's just she's not quite the same, and her whatever race she goes into, it's going to be tough. So I'm with you there. Cody's Wish,
and let me be clear, like with Cody, it's like I don't not like him. I think I love that horse. It's just I'm concerned with like his value in the race.
He hasn't looked great.
And he hasn't looked awesome since since the Whitney.
And with Up to the Mark, I veto it because you're still listening to stuff instead of just watching what he does at on the track. I mean, that's as simple as I can put it. Like,
it has nothing. It really has nothing to do. I just think I'm like with Rodney here. It's more like I just don't think he can compete with the Euros. Now, again, if there's no,
all he's done is beat Euros though this year.
Yeah, at a mile.
In the Manhattan, he beat a European horse from O'Brien who came and won at that race before at Belmont by like 8. And he smoked him.
Who was it? It was
I can't even remember the name now. That's
yeah.
how bad he smoked him.
I believe it. What price would he need to be for you to not want to play him up to the mark in the turf?
I mean, not knowing who's going to be in the turf, I can't really answer it.
Let's look at the turf.
But he beat Ottoman Fleet. That's who he beat.
Oh, come on, please. I've never even heard of that horse.
Ottoman Fleet.
Who is coming over that might, I guess if this, yeah, I mean, it's not awesome. I guess if this most diff or whatever, they say this horse may not run this weekend because of the turf. I mean, if they were to opt to this, I mean, that horse becomes interesting coming over. But
when we sit here the week of the race, if there's monster European horses, then I may play against them as well. But if you hadn't heard what you heard, you probably would even. You may not have picked him, but there's no way you'd be saying what you're saying, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, we hear things all the time. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. Kind of just got to ignore it, and you got to look at the track and be like, well, no matter what somebody's told me, all he does is run great races. So I just can't listen to that kind of stuff, you know. I mean. To me, that was such a big test off a 4-month layoff to go a distance that's not quite optimal against a horse that absolutely loves the distance and dominated in a North American setting. And by the way, that horse, Master of the Seas, fired a huge effort and he still beat him. I mean,
yeah,
I don't really know the explanation for you hear one thing about the horse and they go out and do that. I don't really know how that coincides, but all I can do is say, hey, if he's entered and he's running, I'm just going to assume he's going to run that kind of race because there's just not any proof that he's not. I mean, that's just it for me.
I never would have picked just because I loved Master of the Seas that much, Same. But I would have lessened my opinion on Master of the Seas if I would have not known or at least not heard what I heard, right? Yep. So you're right on that regard. And I guess there is a play like what we keep hearing, and I get it. Trust me. After that day, I was like, never again. It's like now the horse is going to go run in the Breeders' Cup, and if this horse if any of that is possible, if there's any good turf horse that comes over here from the now, if you're talking about what we have here, and let's pretend that Raptors is the best horse, which I've never heard of Raptors, is the best international horse that comes into the race. Well, then like even if you know that, how can you go against him unless he falls down, right? Because it's just that he's been beating the hell. But my thoughts were if we do get a solid international horse coming over and say up to the mark is, I don't even know, 3-1 or something, I would play against him.
I mean, it's just going to depend on who comes up. If he's 3-1 against a meh field, I will take up to the mark and not worry about it. I mean, it's just how it is. And I mean, look, people have told us horses are crippled and they go win Breeders' Cup races for a while. Like Whitmore, a good example. All the time, crippled. He's crippled. He's crippled. All he would do would go out there and win. Whole career. That's all we heard. I mean, there just comes a point you got to stop listening because it's bullshit. And I mean, I'm the same way as you. Well, for A, I didn't listen to a word we were told. B, I had him in second because I really didn't think he could win at a mile off a 4-month layoff against a horse like that. I mean, that's a Master of the Seas is no joke. And I just didn't think he would be sharp enough. I thought he'd run well. Obviously, I put him second. But, I mean, to me, he showed the last bit of ingredient that makes a horse from good to really, really good or great, the desire to go win. Because he could have easily got second, beaten half length or a length, and you go, damn, he ran really well. But to go get that horse, that was really special. So There you
that
go.
went from like for someone that hadn't mastered the seas, singled and everything, and had a huge win bet. I was like, got it. This horse made a perfect ride, broke through, and then you see up to the mark, you're like, oh no. But even then, you're thinking, well, he's probably not going to be good enough to get to this horse. And he just kept coming and kept coming, and again, he hit the wire, and I really had no idea who won that race. But yeah, he definitely way surpassed. Even if you didn't know any of the information, or at least what what we were told, to do that against that horse was surprising.
I mean, just to me, like I said, going a mile, I thought
especially going a mile, yeah, exactly.
If they both fire their best race, Master C's a little bit sharper, and like I said, they both fired their best race. And listen, the bottom line is it came down to luck at the end as far as cashing or not cashing on whoever you bet, because I almost thought it was a dead heat watching it when I watched the replay finally.
Dude, I did too. I went back. I flip-flopped back and forth on which one I thought actually got it, and then I was like, maybe it was a dead heat. I mean, really, it's a heck of a bob, brutal bob if you were with me or anyone that was on Master of the Seas, but really just an unbelievable race, and one that even is it Master of the Seas? Maybe he just, I don't know. I feel like he should have won that thing, but maybe up to the mark is just that good.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you could look at it and go, "Gosh, Master of Seas got the jump on him and should have won." I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think he's like some kind of otherworldly horse. I just think he's really good, and I just think he got beat by a horse that just saw him up there and said, "We're going to go get him," And he, I mean, you got to tip your. I mean, up to the mark.
Yeah,
you just got to tip your hat. I mean, that was a hell of an effort. A hell of an effort to fire that kind of race.
That was to run that way. Yeah, off the layoff was incredible.
Couldn't have been more impressed. No.
Mike says warm heart, Stone Cold single in the filly and mare turf if she comes. We did talk about that race a little bit. I mean, if it's Spiral comes, are you assuming Spiral doesn't come, Michael? I would agree. I do like warm heart, but
if the whole problem is you don't know who's coming and who's going where, so it's all kind of like Spiral might go to the mile, So you just don't know.
I do have one, and I'm glad you brought this up, Christopher, because I think this is interesting. What if if up to the mark, I don't care, Michael. If up to the mark wins the turf, and I don't know, whatever happens in the classic. I mean, he's got to be making a case for horse of the year, right?
If up to the mark wins the turf, I don't think there's any debate. But I seem to be almost all alone in that opinion based on this week's NTRA voting.
Congratulations.
I don't. I mean, that would be 4 straight Grade 1 wins. I mean, all at different. Well, I don't know. That wouldn't all be different distances because the class or the turf would be the same as the Manhattan, I believe. But still, it's just like who's put together a streak like that. Now, if Arcangelo was to win the Classic, then there's a big time debate, I think, between those two horses for sure. But if Arcangelo doesn't win the Classic and up to the mark wins the turf, I think he's a shoo-in my opinion. But you look at the NTRA poll, Christopher. He's the 5th overall horse right now in America, according to the NTRA voters. Not me and not Jared either. Jared had him 2nd, but he's 5th right now. And I mean, to me, that kind of tells you he's probably not winning that award unless there's some big time, mind changing going on. Baffling to me that he's that low. But anyway, he's my horse of the year if he wins at the Breeders' Cup.
Well, what's going to happen is the only way you're not getting him in there is if you get okay, if Arcangelo wins the Classic, he's horse of the year. There's no way, even if up to the and I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying, if he wins the Classic, they're going to vote him horse of the year.
I think that's a fact. Yeah.
Past him though in the Classic, I don't know. I think he's the only one that I would say that about in the Classic.
Yeah, I agree. And to be fair, if you have you have Arcangelo at number 1 still, I don't have any problem with that. I'm not. I have a problem with somebody that might have him out of the side of the top 5. Like that's
Yeah.
up
No,
to the mark.
I put him second. I'm up to the mark. Because I've had up to the mark at one point in this year. I had him 1. Okay, so when he was running, and rattled off a few of those wins, I had up to the mark in my number 1 horse, and so I've kept him in the top 3 all year, even when he's been off. When we hadn't seen him in a couple months, and so he moved up to 2 for me, and I really debated back and forth in my head if does he move past Arcangelo, who really hasn't done anything wrong really either. But yeah, I mean, I kind of like, okay, let's wait and see. Let's let the Breeders' Cup kind of move him ahead of Arcangelo kind of thing.
Which is more than fair. And I mean, I debated that as well. I had Arcangelo on top for a while, but then you just kind of look at the resume. It's like, well, he's rattled off 3 Grade 1 wins, and I just don't see anybody else that has that. So I'm going to do that. And I just feel like the competition he's faced has been really good each time. So anyway, but yeah, if you've got him 1, 2, 3, whatever, I get it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be decided at the Breeders' Cup. You're right. I think Arabian Night might have an outside shot at Horse of the Year if he wins the Classic and things break right, behind him, where a horse like Up to the Mark would lose, and maybe an Elite Power type would lose. But I mean, it's Horse of the Year is pretty wide open unless Arcangelo wins the Classic. Then it's pretty much the door shut.
I mean, yeah. Hopefully one of those 2 wins, and that way we can have less of a there's no debate on who it should be. All right, just to kind of recap, to run through some of these that we mentioned. For studs, Halter and I both strongly agree, and I don't think there's any, out of all the races, out of all the horses mentioned, stud or dud, the one we have the most conviction about is Echo Zulu, assuming she runs in the Filly and Mare Sprint. Mm-hmm. She is our stud, the stud of the Breeders' Cup. We have in Spiral, if assuming comes over. But again, I think you could kind of almost, that's kind of like what I said earlier with any international horse that's in a turn. Like if that horse doesn't come and it's Warm Heart that does, then I'm probably saying the same thing about her. So, Practical Move in the Dirt Mile and Up to the Mark, I was vetoed. So moves into the stud category. For the duds, we've got a list. Locked in the Juvenile, Prince of Monaco in the Juvenile, Vivi's Dream in the Juvenile Fillies, the entire Distaff field, Go Rocket Ride in the Classic, Warlike Goddess in the Turf, and Cody's Wish in the Dirt Mile. There's our list of studs and duds as we get closer to the Breeders' Cup World Championships. Obviously, lots of that can change depending on who comes over and who doesn't, how these horses work, all the things as we get closer to the main event. But for now, there's our studs and duds. I don't know. Cody's Wish is the one that could make us look dumb. I mean, that horse could certainly.
Don't you kind of feel like that Cody's Wish thing? It's a lot is riding on who actually runs in that race.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, because you don't that's such a weird field where you have Saudi Crown and is he gonna go to the Classic and Practical Move, where's he gonna go? And so it just kind of depends, in my opinion, where they go. But yeah, if no one's in there, it's gonna be kind of like, what was it, the Vosberg, whatever it was last one?
Yeah.
Where it's I mean, I don't know that he's the same horse, but I still like him,
Say Practical Move in there, Saudi Crown in there. We know Slow Down Indy isn't going to be in there.
Then yeah, I mean, how do you? I'm not gonna. Let's put it this way: I'm not gonna not pick him based off just because I can't pick him. I just not gonna pick him. Right now, I like 2 other horses better than I do him.
Yeah,
assuming Saudi Crown and Practical Move are in the race.
Yeah,
but obviously that can change.
Yep.
Yeah, it definitely did, Kevin. Definitely, he looked. We've talked about that, I feel like, extensively on the show. it'd been nice to see something. He just never something happened that day with him.
We were talking to one of our buddies before he was getting ready to run the Vosburg, who was there on Whitney Day, and we talked to him on Whitney Day about him too. And we were kind of like, I said, and we were all kind of talking about that you could beat him today if somebody was in there. We all kind of felt the same way what Kevin just said. His Whitney was bad, but it wasn't just the distance. He was just shitty that race, And I said, what's going to happen is he's going to win this race by default, and we're all going to come to this group chat and go, well, he won, but he's not the same. And lo and behold, that's what happened. Like, he won. There was never a whole lot of doubt he was going to win, but you watch it and you went, he is not what he was. So he's got to either get back to where he was, or he could lose to a lot lesser horse.
Oh yeah. And, here's the thing about it. It's like, for him and for like racing and everything, like assuming I don't have a bet right against him, I hope he wins, right? He ends his career on top, and like everything. But if Saudi Crown or Practical Move are in the race, I'm gonna hope he gets beat by one of those two, because I'll likely be playing one of those two over him. But certainly gonna be rooting for him, just because it's, no matter what, it's been one hell of a story, one hell of a career for sure. So
yep.
All right, we're gonna do a couple rapid fires here at Keeneland, and get you guys out of here for Magic Mike. Let's see here. Time for rapid fire, presented by the 2023 Breeders' Cup Betting Bible. Can you feel it? It is officially Breeders' Cup season. We are just a mere weeks away from the 40th annual Breeders' Cup World Championships, and we are pumped to offer you our Breeders' Cup 2023 Betting Bible right now at racingdudes.com. It is an official betting guide to the Breeders' Cup World Championships. You'll get the exact bets that myself and Aaron Halterman will be playing every single race on both Friday and Saturday at the Breeders' Cup. You'll get pick 3, pick 4, pick 5 analysis, top 4 picks from every single handicapper at racingdudes.com. And we have a special bonus this year and this year alone for the Breeders' Cup Betting Bible. You will now get the 14 trends to the 2023 Breeders' Cup absolutely free, included in this betting Bible. It is something that I've been putting together for years now. I pick out one very important trend for every single race in the Breeders' Cup, and gives you an opportunity to kind of see the trends, what we've seen in the past. You name it, it's in there, and it gives you an idea and maybe an angle that you can play, maybe times to play the favorite, times to play against. It's included free in the betting Bible. This is available right now at racingdudes.com, or you can get it for free. You can get both the betting Bible and the 14 trends absolutely for free if you are a premium subscriber at racingdudes.com. So you get $70 a month is our minimum value, $70 a month, and you'll get those two for free, which are $50 for sale right now at racingdudes.com. You do the math. I'm not a genius, but I feel like that's a good price. Go to racingdudes.com. Learn more about the official betting guide to the Breeders' Cup World Championships. We are so excited that it's here. We are just weeks away. Stay tuned. Let's cash some tickets at the Breeders' Cup.
RacingDudes.com is your home for the best free picks for every race, every track. It's Breeders' Cup season, and we've got wall-to-wall coverage of the World Championships. Subscribe to YouTube.com/RacingDudes right now. Click the notification bell. You never want.
Get that guy off there. What's he doing? I don't know who that second guy was, but that first guy, man, he's got me excited for the Breeders'
Cup.
It.
I gotta. Can I share a bad beat story that just happened?
Oh, so while I was just enjoying myself, well, I was, the recorded version, but while myself on screen was enjoying myself, you were getting beat over there.
Yeah. So this is crazy. Gosh, So I went 4 or 5 at the Rockets went 4 or 5 in the early pick 5 at Keeneland today, and got beat in the second race by a 4-1 shot. So you're out early, right? The third race winner paid $50, had it on the ticket.
Oh.
The fourth race winner paid $13, had it on the ticket. What did the first race pay? The first race paid $8.40, so it was a shorter price. Went too deep in the final leg. Maiden special weight field at 12. Got it. Got the 9 home at 3-1. This thing is paying.
Oh, no.
What did it pay? Let's see. 12,000. A little over 12,000. And the 4-1 horse in the second knocked me out.
How deep did you go in the second?
4 deep.
Was that horse considered?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those races to me. It was just kind of like, you're just going to have to play as many as you can. It was kind of a weird race. What made it worse, I had the second place horse and the third place horse. So
it's one thing if like,
15-1
or something wins that race. You're like, well, I never had it. But when you have a 4-1 win, it's like, ugh.
Yep. I went second, third, and fourth. I had all 3 of them, but it did not have the winner. Yeah. And then, like I said, you catch the 7 in the next leg that paid $50. So that is a brutal, brutal, brutal loss.
Way to bring it down.
I mean, let's see, the 4 got second in that race, and the 4 was 6-1. So I mean, it probably pays 13,000-14,000 if the 6 or the 4 gets up and wins. So yeah,
well,
brutal.
My condolences.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that sucks. It's one thing if you get beat by a long shot, but when you get beat by a horse that is logical, makes it tricky. Makes it very annoying. Let's put it that way. But hey, at least it was second leg, like Kevin said, not the last leg.
Sure, yeah, but I mean,
it still sucks, but it could have been worse.
Yep.
Anyways, all right, let's go. Just hopefully get some winners here and help your cause. Let's go to Friday at Keeneland. So we're gonna do 1 stakes race each day: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Race 9, the Sycamore Stakes Friday, grade 3. It's worth $300K, going 1.5 miles on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. Big field here, field of 12, a bunch of also eligibles. You got 7-2 on the 3. Bold Act. We got international invasion going on this weekend at Keeneland, and Appleby sends over a horse. Bold Act. Spencer gets to ride. Jamie Spencer gets to ride. Red Knight in here, you can kind of have those kind of horses. Red Knight at 9-2, Therapist at 6-1. Tawny Port, kind of resurgence on the turf in his career now, 6-1. Channel Maker runs in every one of these kind of races at 8-1. Thoughts on this one here? I'll be honest, like Bold Act on paper, you feel like, okay, like this is not the greatest of horses we have to offer. International comes over, you got to strongly consider it's Appleby. But it's not like Bold Act has been like a legit runner overseas either.
I took a little shot against Bold Act. I went with the number 5, Tawny Port. You kind of mentioned his resurgence since moving over to Christophe Clement, getting on the turf. His last 2 races especially, they've been really solid. So I think Tawny Port's going to be tough in here. I expect him to run well. I think he'll stock the pace, get first run on the leaders. I think 1.5 miles, no problem for him. Gets Rosario aboard. He rode him to a victory 2 races back over at Saratoga. So give me the 5, Tawny Port, in this one.
Yeah, man. This was easily the one that I worked on or looked at the longest. Just like couldn't pull the trigger on anyone. I felt like I was with you. I immediately was like, okay, I'm not gonna go Bold Act. I mean, that horse certainly could win, but not worth the price in my opinion. Red Knight, another one of those. I'm not sure I want to play at a shorter price. I think you can make a case for a bunch in here. I mean, Highest Honors at 8-1. It was somewhat interesting to me. I'm with you. Tawny Port, I think, is a very, very clear. I'll be honest, like the loss to Cross Border last time shook me a little bit,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you feel like you got beat by Cross Border as a favorite, but I mean, I definitely get it. I ultimately went price hunting, and in a race that you've got Therapist in the race for Maker, you've got Red Knight in the race for Maker. What about the other Maker? How about the 10 Red Run? I think this is an interesting horse. It's a horse that I've bet on personally many times in the past, but it's been on the dirt and kind of got to came back on the turf, had ran on the turf in the past, but came back to the turf after running these like long marathon races. Ran a 1.8 mile at Churchill Downs and just dusted him. Beat a comeback winner as well in that one, and just really ran a nice race. I think you're going to get the price, and that to me is the key here because T-Gaff was riding this horse. He obviously switches to the other maker horse, and now you get Santana, which I mean, obviously comparing the two is a downgrade, but I feel like this is a horse that's going to get no play whatsoever based off the other more proven maker horses. So give me a horse that likes to close late. Again, I don't love this race, but I do think taking a price makes sense. So give me the 10 Red Run. Did you like Red Run at all?
No.
Not. You could at least, I mean, I think at 12 horses, 7 of them, I wouldn't be surprised maybe in that department.
I'm taking a second look at Red Run because it's not one I really thought about. Let's see here. Yeah. I mean, you got to like Maker going long on the turf. That is the big positive.
Santana, you cannot like. I get it. Trust me.
Yeah.
I just can't get myself to pick Red Knight or Therapist at a low price. Certainly not picking Channel Maker. I just can't. Tawny Port would be my second choice. I mean, because I'm looking at horses that are not yet proven totally on the turf. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not these ones that keep running all this, these like Red Knights, and it's like these horses are like 12 years old. Well, 9. Red Knight's 9 years old. Therapist is 8.
Right.
I mean, Channel Maker's 9. I mean, this is like it's crazy. Give me a young buck to try to beat these horses. I guess Boldak probably run right by them all, but I just gets an opportunity to play against. All right, let's go to a good one here on Saturday, race 9, the Queen Elizabeth II, or you'll also see it called the QE2 Challenge Cup. It's a grade 1. We're 600K going 1.8 miles on the turf. And dude, he's going 1.8 miles. I'm sorry, it's going 1.8 miles on the turf. It is, but this has got so many opportunities for whether it be the mile, whether it be whether it be the filly and mare turf. Plenty of opportunities for a few of these horses in this race going to the Breeders' Cup out of this. And I know that we've seen horses late to the Breeders' Cup in this weekend, but this feels like one of the better turf races that actually could have some very real implications at the Breeders' Cup that we've seen in many years. Field of 12, and dude, it's just the odds are awesome because who you like, you're getting 2-1 on Maj. You're getting 3-1 on Elusive Princess. But past that, I mean, remember the time I had Mission of Joy. I mean, probably a lot of people did, but Mission of Joy was like really good earlier this summer. 20-1.
Yeah.
I mean, Heavenly Sun. I'm sorry, Lagora, 15-1. Prerequisite 20-1. Papilio at 10-1. I mean, if you're gonna try to beat any of those 2 internationals, which I'm not gonna sit here and say you should, but if you do, you're getting whatever price you want.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that just shows you how good they think Maj is and how good Elusive Princess ran last time out at Saratoga, right? I mean, those 2 horses just seem to be a little bit better. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. I think Elusive Princess is going to beat Maj in this spot because I just have a little bit more confidence. She came over to Saratoga, handled awful, just brutally bad conditions that day. Really probably never should have ran that race. They did anyway. You remember
canceled it right after. So,
oh yeah. And it was just it was a bog. Ran so well. I mean, so well. And I just think, hey, got that race under her belt. She's going to handle it. I think she'll run huge. Maj may beat her. I just think you use these 2 and move on. I don't think there's a lot to think about past these 2. But I took Elusive Princess on top.
Let's put it this way. Like, if either one was not in the race, I would single that one, the one that's in, right? Like, I think it's very clear that these, like, Elusive Princess, after that performance that day, I would have said wherever she shows up next, I'll bet her because that was a visually it was so impressive of a performance, especially considering the conditions that day.
Yep.
Maj to me is elite, but could be elite over here. You watched that Guinness last time out. This horse has also rattled off 3 straight wins. Now it hasn't gone past a mile, which I guess is the only question mark going longer. But I mentioned it earlier. It beat Tara that day, and I mean that's a horse that's just unbelievable overseas, and just a back and forth. You didn't know who was going to win. They pulled away. Very interesting too. What we talked about this, or at least I believe maybe it's Magic Mike talked about a little bit. We talked about it too, but you don't often see it. These international turf horses come over and have like good speed. They might have speed, but then they come over here and it's like, well, that's a different kind of speed over here. But the Maj has been a horse that's been on or close to the lead, which I think is interesting when you bring a horse like that over here that kind of gives that horse a little more tactical options versus that go to this back and close into the turf. And, you don't. So to me, that horse will be in the race sooner than a lot of times these international horses are. So to me, Maj is the horse. I'm picking Maj here. I really do believe either one of these horses. Now, past that, I don't know that I would have a huge, say, the Guaria wins. I wouldn't have this huge opinion of her if she were running the Breeders' Cup. But if one of these other ones went, Elusive Princess or Maj, these are 2 horses that are clearly pointing to the Breeders' Cup and using this as a prep. If they come out and run huge, they're legit contenders for the Breeders' Cup too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Lindy, the number 6 horse, is another one. Like you were kind of saying, what are some other ones win? I think that one I'm interested in to see how she runs, but it does kind of feel like the 2, the 4, those are the ones that for Breeders' Cup purposes, that's who's coming over here to try to get to that big race.
What do you think of them? I remember talking about it too, right after that, whenever, it was that day or maybe the next day, when they were like, oh yeah, it's going to Delcourt. I mean, it's kind of weird, right?
We all thought it was kind of strange, but I mean, you look at his percentages, you look at what he does. He's probably going to do a good job, and he's got a good relationship with Flavian. So I don't think that's who everybody thought it would be, but I don't think it's a big deal one way or the other, really.
All right, so I got Maj. You've got Elusive Princess. Obviously, it's very too clearly the top contenders of the race. All right, let's go to Sunday. The last one here, race 7 on Sunday at Keeneland, Franklin Stakes, grade 2, 350K, 5.5 furlongs on the turf for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. Field of 9 lines up here. Caravel is your 9-5 favorite. Not a shocker that she's the favorite, but maybe was a little bit of a shocker of how poorly she ran last time out. We were there to see her. What are you thinking of her here? One, what do you think of her here? What do you think of her moving forward? I'll be honest, dude. If you would have initially said, okay, she's going to run in this race in the Franklin, you would say, well, lock that up.
Yeah.
But you look at this race, what got her beat last time out was speed. And there's a lot of speed in this one too.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see what happens. Somebody earlier asked us about the turf sprint in the chat, and you really can't say much until you see this race and see how she comes back. I think she'll run better. You got to remember that was over a soft turf course. May just not had her best that day. I think she'll bounce back and run better. I think she'll win pretty easily. As far as what do we think, moving forward, I think that's just going to have to be a question after the race. If she comes back, she's super sharp. You're liking her. If she gets beat here or wins, but it's close, you're probably not liking her. She did get beat by some pretty nice horses. So that's kind of the good news there, but just wasn't herself. Didn't run very well at all. Facing girls again, though, that's got to be a help, at least for this race. We'll see after that. I'm not in love with her. That's for sure. You've got an Appleby horse here that might try to upset her. Twilight Gleaming's not too bad. Wakanaka, shortening up has been decent. So there's some horses out there. There's some options. I'm going to stick with Caravel though.
Caravel to me is the clear horse, right? And I mean, to me, it's one of those that if she comes back to her form, then not only will she win here probably, but she also will be tough in the Breeders' Cup. But I thought last time out, we learned maybe something from her, that if you can outrun her, early in the race, it might. Now, granted, the track too may have played a factor that day. She has not ran extremely great over her career on soft surfaces, so that could definitely be. She loves Keeneland. She's 3 for 3 at Keeneland. So if she were to get beat here, it'd be more of an indicator that she's off her form completely.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to try to beat her just because I do think 9 to 5 is a pipe dream. Now, if you can tell me you can give me 9 to 5, then I would take it.
Yeah.
But I think she's going to be more like 4 to 5 or something. I'm going to go with the 5 Base Storm. I think this is an interesting horse. I've been knocking on the door with her in regard. She has won back-to-back races. She's in 6 starts of this distance, 2 wins, 3 seconds. So she always is running her race. I like that she's got that tactical speed, so she can go to the lead, but she also can sit off of the lead, which is going to be handy because I think there's a lot of horses that are going to want to go to the lead. If you go back and watch that race at Churchill Downs early this year in May, it was either Derby, I think it was Oaks Day, maybe. Ran second to Caravelle that day. No, Caravelle was awesome that day. Kind of came flying late. But I do think if we can kind of soften up Caravelle in some ways, and she's maybe not to her top level, Base Storm could pick her off and kind of run a nice race. Jonathan Thomas and Giroux team up really well at 35%. So I like Base Storm to pull off the upset at 9 to 2. But again, it's all dictated a little bit on what kind of form we're going to see from Caravelle. But give me the upset, number 5, Base Storm. This is one of those races, I'm picking against her, but I also am going to probably be hard pressed to not pick her in the Breeders' Cup if she comes back to form,
Yeah, it just kind of depends on how she runs, and it depends on who we see in the race. That's just such a tough thing to kind of guess on.
I didn't, I think that what bothers me the most about that race from her was not that she didn't win. It was that she finished 4th.
Yeah.
Know, she just did not run. That was not what we had not seen that from her in a long time.
No.
Where it's you never really thought she was winning, and that was weird. So it kind of makes you just gives you pause for a second.
Didn't fire. That's the best way to describe it. Just did not fire.
Yeah, I mean they blazed. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
I mean she had you would have thought would have been able to. I mean, Cogburn won the thing. I mean, it's
yeah, no, I agree.
It's come on, but. All right, it's all the time we have. Check us out at racingnews.com for our free picks and our premium selections on our products page. Click the Get Racing News Premium at the menu at racingnews.com to learn more. Remember, go check out the Best Bets page as well to see how our best bets are doing. And, if you want to get an idea of what we're playing each and every day, the best options that you have available, whether it be horse racing. I'm thinking about putting a NFL play for tonight's game. I'll have that on there as well. So I love to play the player props. I'm a player prop guy in the NFL. And so probably have one of those out there. But yeah, you can get an idea of what we've done and how we're doing and what picks we have available on our Best Bets page. And remember, go get the betting Bible. It's for sale. Pre-sale is happening right now. I expect the 14 trends. I don't have it in front of me. It's going to be out in the next week or so. Working on that this weekend pretty heavily. But the 14 trends is included for free with this year's betting Bible. So go ahead and get your hands on that right now, and you'll be the first to receive that when they do become available in the coming weeks. We're on Twitter at @racing_dudes, Instagram and Facebook. You can find episodes of Blinkers Off by visiting our podcast page, Apple Podcasts, all the places you listen to. We are there, including the Magic Mike Show, who will be live here coming up in about an hour and a half. They're doing the Keeneland Saturday late pick 5. So obviously we talked a lot about that QE2 race, but if you want more, by the way, on that race, hang on, it's race number. It's the last. I think it's the last race of the day.
First mission.
Yeah, making his return to the track. Been asking about this horse for a while, and I've talked to number 1 horse, First Mission, race 10 on Saturday. So the race right after the QE2, one even money. First Mission, the horse that was scratched out of the Preakness, won the Lexington that day, beat Arabian Lion. First mission makes his return. First race since April.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he does. That's going to be fun. I've handicapped that card, at least about the back half of it, and I think he'll win that race pretty easily.
It'll be good to see him back.
For sure.
I guess maybe I'm not Curtis. I have not. Is the wind that bad? I mean, it's not windy in Springfield. I mean, it's windy, but it's not bad.
I don't think the wind's going to have a huge effect one way or another tonight. I would be surprised if the weather has that big effect. I mean, it's not like a hurricane or anything out here. I mean, it's windy, but it's not like crazy.
But it's just weird because I've not even thought about it once until I've had multiple people ask me about the wind.
Yeah,
today. I'm like, well, okay, I don't know. I didn't even know that's a thing tonight.
Weird.
In Kansas City. So
yeah.
But I can tell you 3 hours south, it's not windy.
Well, overall, it's going to be a really, really nice night for October in Kansas City. They played in a lot worse weather. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, well, like I told our buddy when he asked me about it, I said, well, put it this way. If you're betting, because he was asking about the total, I was like, it's not going to, in my opinion, that's not going to be a cause for it going under. Maybe there might be another reason, like the Chiefs' offense hasn't clicked yet, and Denver sucks. Like you could see that, but I don't think the wind is going to be the issue.
I think it goes under because the Chiefs' defense is better, and they hold Denver to a lot less points than what they may have in the past. And it may go under because is Kelsey going to play? I mean, do we know if he's playing or not?
Yeah, he's playing.
Well, then that if he's healthy, that's a problem for Denver because their defense is brutal. But if Kelsey does go out, then all of a sudden the Chiefs' offense isn't quite as good. I mean, that could be something, but it's one of those things. Logically, it should go over, but the way the line's been moving tells you it might go under.
8:00 tonight, Kansas City, 72 degrees, winds south-southeast at 16 miles per hour. So 16 ain't going to cut it. So I've been to Arrowhead thousands of times. It can get windy if you're up high.
Yeah.
Down low, it usually is not too bad. So I can see it being somewhat. You could maybe make a case for it, like for kickers or whatever. Maybe like if a gust comes through or whatever. But I don't. Let's put it this way: I never would have thought twice about it had it not had people ask me. So
nope. I think. By the way, the betting age is here because when those things start to get talked about, it's like, yeah,
I know, right?
You're probably going a little too far now.
It's like I'm like looking at workouts or something,
right.
or this horse, case in point, this horse I've heard this horse's foot hurts when it's like,
right.
Okay. Let's see. I think for the record, I asked the boys and gave mine as well. We gave predictions. Cohen says it's going to be 39-7.
Yeah.
Cooper says 50-7.
Okay.
And I went with 31-20. So I'm a little more on the a little more pro, I guess, that they'll score some points, but I think it'll be closer than maybe obviously closer than Cooper thinks.
It shouldn't be that good of a game. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Divisional game, you never know, but I mean the Broncos, they have been, other than the Bears, they have just been
bad.
I can't even describe how bad they've been. I mean, I kind of feel good for Hackett because everybody was saying he was the worst coach in the history of football.
Yeah,
they're worse. They're worse this year. And that's not even an opinion. Like, look at the stats. They're
and it's like what's even funnier is Russell Wilson is noticeably better this year than he was last year, and yet the team as a whole is still worse.
They are horrible. I mean, they've lost home games to the Jets, the Raiders, and the Commanders. At home, they lost those games. I mean,
you can't lose to the Jets at home. I mean, I'm sorry, but
I
get the Chiefs was a battle. Trust me, I get it. But that was a away game. That was a weird game. Definitely didn't play well. But you cannot. That kind of with the whole Hackett thing, like it's crazy. but
it's crazy. I can't believe how bad they are. I cannot believe how bad they are.
By the way, okay, so Turtles don't play tonight. We played what didn't we play? Tuesday night, I think it was. Didn't go well. Hit the over. The Turtles lost 7-1. It was our worst loss of the year.
Whipped
5-0 in first half. Had to pull my goalie. Things got better the second half. It went 2-1. Cohen had a goal in the second half. Our problem, it's weird. Like, we get shots every game, and it's never feels like it's one-sided. My biggest problem is I have no goalie. I have no help back there. It's just brutal. I do have a goalie. It's Cohen, but if I do that, we have no chance to score.
Then you can't score.
It's just I can either let Cohen get peppered with targets,
right,
or just let him go out there and try to outscore him, which that doesn't happen either. So one game left. Okay, one game left. Yeah, I do agree. There's going to be a press conference following the season, Kevin. So don't worry.
Yeah, I think it's over. I think you as a head coach, it's pretty much done now. Unfortunately, hate to say it, but I think that's just the reality.
Yeah, I'm blaming it on the environment and the league I'm in, not myself. I think I'm doing a fine job.
Okay, well, of course you do.
Is this what Is this what it feels like to be an NFL coach? I feel like it's the closest thing to it.
Yeah, so. I think it is. Yeah, I think it's exactly the same thing.
It feels like the pressure feels the same for sure.
Yeah.
Every day. I don't know. It definitely puts it into perspective when it's like you really want to win or whatever, and then you look over after the game and Cohen's like, or like the rest of the team or whatever is just like eating their snacks and not giving two shits about what just happened. They don't even know. You could tell them, what was the score? Oh yeah, we won. Okay.
Yeah,
so
they don't care.
It's like I told this kid, this kid had one of our kids on our team had a shot and it would have gone in, but it was a handball on the other team. And so we got a kick and we of course messed it up. No shocker there. And so I told him, I was like, don't worry about it. It counted. I said, we're counting it. It was 7-2. Okay. And he's like, okay, cool. I'm like, all right. See, there you go.
It is funny. Up until about a year ago, I go watch my cousin play volleyball and basketball here and there, and she's a senior now. But really, up until like late last year, after the games were over, you wouldn't know if she won or lost. So it's like she was just happy to be playing, and that's that, right? And it is kind of different because I remember even when we were little. Maybe not 6, but 10, 12 years old, man, we were pissed if we lost or happy when we won. Seeing that different perspective is always kind of like, oh, okay, well, I was really into this game, but now it's like, why did I really cheer? It doesn't matter. You don't care.
Yeah, exactly. That's always what's amazing when you see the parents or the coaches that are all pissed. You're just like, come on.
And again, like I said, her parents are the same way, they're really into it. And I am too when I go watch it, but you can tell when all said and done, she does, it's like, well, I was out with my friends and we had fun, for the most part, that's the attitude. And it's like, well, that would have made sports a lot more fun if I would have had that attitude.
It's hilarious too, dude, because before each game, and that's the thing, like you can see one, you can see the record, but then you go there and you're warming up and stuff, and you're like, all right, kid's good, that kid's good, that kid doesn't care if they're here. You know what I mean? Like you can get a feel for exactly who you need to be worried about.
Right.
And so I in my head, and I try to tell them okay, here's what we're going to do. And you kind of come up with this idea. It's like, okay, I want you to stay back and we're going to play defense. And then 2 seconds into it, they're all right by the ball. And you're just like, okay. And then next thing you know, one pass, this kid's wide open, boom, kicks it in. And you just sit there, you're like, I don't know. I mean, you can make the plan and make it seem like it probably would work, right?
Right.
But getting them to do it is impossible.
And that's because you've lost the locker room.
Earlier
in the year, they were doing it. Now they won't do it.
Dude, there's times where I just am on the bench, sitting down on the bench, just watching the game. I'm just like, there's no point. There's no point of me yelling at this.
Why did I do this?
I can yell at you to move there, but you're not gonna do it. So Cohen's the only one where I'm like, hey, like, I'll be like, they're getting ready to kick, and I'll be like, go stand there and you'll get the ball, because you know exactly where they're gonna kick it.
Yeah.
And it'll work, but it's like you can't unless you tell them. It's just impossible. It's pretty funny though.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I haven't dropped any F-bombs thankfully during the games. That's surprising, but I haven't. Yeah. I haven't seen my girlfriend either, so I don't know what she's about. So don't ask,
sad.
But
that's sad.
I know. All right, final thoughts, Halts, before we get out of here.
Yeah, everybody have a good weekend. Gonna be fun. Keeneland got some big racing. We covered the big ones, and yeah, listen, man. These fall weekends, nothing like them. So everybody enjoy, and we'll see you for Blinkers Off right back here. I'll see you for Magic Mike in about an hour, and then Dudes Who Bet Sports going to be late night tonight, 6 o'clock. So lots still to come tonight.
Right before the game, I'll try to tune in, chime in about some of my thoughts in the game. But yeah, big weekend, and obviously, we talked about the racing happening and races you need to watch that have major implications for the Breeders' Cup, and obviously for myself, before we get the pre-entries and stuff start coming out, like I'm gonna really dive into these races this weekend and start kind of studying and getting at least a blueprint of what I think it's a good idea to get at least an idea of what you're kind of envisioning. And then once the entries come out and stuff, then you can start to pivot, okay, that horse didn't show up. I thought he would. Well, that he's running here instead of there. Whatever. Then you can start to kind of filter down. But for me, it's a good way to kind of start looking at these races when it's kind of an overall picture. But the biggest thing I can say is don't go into any of these races with an attitude of this is the horse. I've done that so many times. I do it all the time in the Breeders' Cup because you hear about a horse coming over or this horse has been pointing this race and you get too tunnel visioned that you don't see. That's exactly what happened to me when I didn't pick Modern Games 2 years ago or whenever it was in the juvenile. Because I was so envisioned in what was happening here that I didn't. And I was like, I wanted to pick that horse that I didn't think about this horse that was coming over from overseas. I didn't strongly consider it enough. And so it's a good idea to kind of keep an open mind, especially this early on. So anyways, stay tuned for that 14 trends coming out. I'm Jared Welch. He's Aaron Halterman. Good luck this weekend, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Blinkers Off. Join our horse racing community at racingdudes.com and follow us on Twitter at racing_dudes. Want to make money betting horses? Bet with the Racing Dudes.